know what's funny? I'm going to talk to you right now, but I should come back because I'm in the middle of doing a project for Nat Geo, which I can talk a little bit about it. But part of it was that I was the victim of a romance scam, which is amazing. But we started reporting on it. So it's so interesting how the scam industry in general has grown. We first pitched this story about scams to Nat Geo in season 1 of Trafficking in 2019. And I remember our execs there being like, scams? That's not a big deal. And it really was not at the time a big deal. I mean, they happened, but it wasn't as prevalent as they are right now. I think in 2024, which is the last numbers we have for them, $12 billion were stolen from Americans just on scams alone. And a big part of that are, in fact, romance scams. So we ended up doing a few stories on scams and then realized that romance scams are really the juiciest, but also the most sort of cruel kind of scam out there, in my opinion. You've got people, a lot of time, unfortunately, what we found in our reporting was that a lot of these scammers are in West Africa. We actually ended up, they're all over the world, but from the reporting that we did took us to the victims that we spoke to when we tracked down their scammers. A lot of them were in West Africa, and we ended up spending time in Ghana interviewing.
And it's an entire industry.
Like
people can't imagine it, that there's like rows and rows of people.
A lot of people have no clue. Like, if someone is like, give us sort of the nuts and bolts, how does it work? And then the industry.
Yeah. So you're out there, you're on social media, or you're on a dating website, or maybe there's just been news that your husband has died. I mean, there are so many ways that these scammers find out about you, and they reach out to you.
But a dating profile would be the easiest way because it's your contact information, it's everything about you, all the things you like, right?
And then they start saying, usually, the typical profile of a romance scammer is that they're in the military, oil rigs, and they're very, very wealthy, and they live a very adventurous life out there. They start sending you photos. These are usually male scammers, but they're also female scammers. But the male scammer profile.
There are also men who pose as female scammers, which 100%. Is the whole thing.
And they do like a voice. So we filmed with some people doing a female voice, which is that one. Insane. And they start sending you photos, and they're usually, this dreamy, the most beautiful, handsome.
They always have gray hair and blue eyes.
You have ever seen, right? The best bodies. There are always lots of shots of them without their T-shirts, bare chested, and lots of muscles and the whole thing. And then they start talking to you day and night. And this happened to me as well. Every single day you're love bombed. And they start slowly like, I want to know more about you. So what interests you? They find common ground. If you're divorced, if your husband died, their wife has died too. If you suffer from depression, turns out they suffer from depression too. They're always trying to find a common ground.
It's also, there's a long game. This isn't like, they ask you for money on the first date.
Weeks, months, sometimes years go by before they even ask a person for money.
And it's always something like, my account, I had to change the bank and the password.
And then they start asking for pictures of you. They actually, in many cases, start sending you, I know this from firsthand experience. They start sending you photos that they've made of you and him side by side. And they start sending you photos where they've printed photos of you in their house, and they're showing you how you are all over their world.
And people fall in love, which
completely.
This is also a thing I personally don't understand, that people who have never spoken on the phone, never FaceTimed in many cases, they start saying, I love you. They develop a love relationship.
100%. He did talk about what he would do to me once he actually got his arms around me after I sent him all the money he was asking for. Yeah.
Wow.
They fall in love so deeply that even when they find out it's a scam, even when they find out that the person is not the person they believed,
they can't believe it.
That happens almost always. They stay in love with the new person that has just come up in their life.
Like, he needed the fact that he was so desperate that he needed to pretend to be a scammer shows like he needs my love. Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
I spoke to a woman once who was being scammed for years, and she was deeply in love with this man. This man, when there was no money left, he couldn't drain her of any more money. He said, okay, I'm going to be real with you right now. I'm actually a Nigerian rapper. And I am not the military guy you thought I was, and I'm not American, and I'm a Nigerian rapper. But I am deeply in love with you. And she traveled to Nigeria and married him. This actually happened.
So he's developing feelings for her too.
He thought he could still get something from her.
We need to be clear. The people who are scamming are often scamming many people.
They use their victims for lots of different things. Once they drain your money, it doesn't mean that you're no good for them anymore. You still are useful to them.
You borrow money from other people to give them. That often happens.
Or you become a drug mule, or you become the money launderer for that person. I interviewed a woman who was receiving, no joke, this was recently, receiving thousands of dollars a week from women, female victims all around America that her scammer was scamming. And she was receiving all these checks and boxes of money from all these women, putting it into her bank account and then moving that money to crypto, Bitcoin, to pay the guy. And she was being used as a money launderer, which can also get her in trouble with the law, by the way. But she, in her defense, she had no idea. What her scammer told her was that he had business in the U.S. with all these people. He had had some sort of tax problem and his bank accounts were frozen. And so he needed her to do this for him in order to build our trust and love for each other. And she did it for 3 years.
This is the way that millions of dollars, billions of dollars are sent.
Billions of dollars.
Billions of dollars are sent. What happens to that money when it gets there? Meaning, what are the scammers actually raising money for?
Oh, a very luxurious lifestyle. So there's various scales, right? There's the, guys in the internet cafes and the bottom of the scale, which I have also interviewed.
And they're like freelancers. Those are just like loan operators.
Exactly, freelancers. I remember interviewing a guy who had sort of a den of scammers, and he worked with like 3 or 4 different people, and each one of them has their own job, right? One of them is the guy that goes online and looks for the dating profiles or the social media profiles out there.
But you got to keep track of all these different women too. You got to know, oh, this one is this and this one's that. It's like a whole job.
This is sort of the planner, the producer, right? The organizer that's reaching out and finding people. And then there was the guy who was the what do they call him? Like not the catcher, but the hook or something. He was the guy that was really good at he was the romantic one. He was the one who was really good at talking to these women or men and getting them to fall in love. And then there was the guy at the end that was the guy that would come in.
The closer.
With the closer. He was like the finisher that came in with the last ask and was the one who like really knew what words to use in order to be able to convince these women or men to send them money. But this guy that in this den of scammers sort of took me to his slum that he grew up in. And he was saying, look, for the longest time, the only way out of the slum was if you were a football player, soccer player. That's all kids wanted to be. Nowadays, the only way out of these slums is if you become a scammer. So ask these kids, and we did. We asked the kids, what do you want to do when you grow up? Half of them put their hands up and were like scammers, because all the scammers in their town are the ones bringing back the money to their families. But they're also the ones driving luxury cars and going out and, night clubbing and all that. So this is sort of from the bottom to the middle. But then there's the real big criminal enterprises. And a lot of these are being operated out of Asia, actually. And it's the pig butchering scams that are mixed with romance scams, by the way, because that's how they get people to trust them. It's a mix of romance scam and a financial crypto scam, essentially, where they start communicating with these women or men. A lot of times, in this case, it's actually more male victims. They start having relationships, and at some point they start sending photos of themselves traveling around the world, having a luxurious lifestyle, and then they start saying, hey, I got rich because I invest in crypto. Would you like to invest in crypto too? It is so easy. Go to this website, just put $100, and you put $100. Everything looks so legitimate, by the way. These websites, they have legitimate names. They look totally legitimate.
And they look legitimate even if you're 30. Like, God bless my mother. She cannot tell when things are illegitimate on the internet. But these are like you or I would look at it and be like, that looks like a bank account.
Which is why this is not an elderly scam. Actually, the majority of the victims of these pig butchering scams are not the elderly. They're actually people like you and I.
So you think that how could they possibly do anything nefarious? I'm logging into Coinbase.
It's even more than that. Sometimes they are actually legit, like they are websites with companies behind them that are legitimate. What they don't know is that the money, when you're seeing your deposit of $100 go up and up and up, and it looks like you're making bank, it is actually, that part is fake.
They're hacking into actual systems and investments
To convince you that you're making a lot of money, except when you want to get your money back, there is no money there. But they come up with more excuses. Oh, you put in $1,000, you've made $100,000, amazing. And now I want my money back. I want to get it out, right? And they say, okay, to get your money back, you just have to pay a fee. And once you're in, and this is the psychology behind scam victims, is that once you're in, even if they sometimes only get you for $10, but once you're in, once you invested even $1 into one of these scams, they have you. There's something psychologically that happens in a person's mind where at that point you just want to believe it. It is really hard to admit that you've been scammed. You prefer to believe that this is all real and keep pouring money into this.
Why are we so gullible?
I don't know. It's a great question, but it is not because we're dumb.
A lot of the kind of misogynistic read on this is that women are so susceptible and women this, but it's not just women and it's not stupid people.
A lot of these crypto scams that are bringing in billions of dollars for criminal enterprises in Asia, men are the victims. It is not, they are really good at what they do.
To speak to the men versus women, there was the case of the bank CEO.
Yeah, it blew even my mind, even though I've been reporting on scams for so long. So this was a bank in Kansas, I believe, right? And it was a regional bank that was set up by all these local farmers and hardworking people. It was the bank that everybody trusted in town. And the head of this bank, the CEO of, I think he was the CEO of the bank, was one of the most trusted men in the town, right? He was a very important person in the town. And suddenly he got mixed up with one of these crypto scams. And it started like this online too. Somebody reached out to him. They became friends online. I don't know if this was a romance scam, but this person portrayed themselves as being very, very, very wealthy and having these incredible returns on these investments that they were doing in crypto. This is somebody who's been a banker all their lives, but perhaps did not know a lot about crypto and was interested in learning more about it. And what are some of the businesses? What can I invest my money into this? And what often happens too is that they won't immediately say yes. They'll say, I have to check. I'm not sure if the company will allow you to invest the money. So then you feel special, right?
There's a scarcity mindset.
Yes. And in this case with the banker was that the poor guy, I actually feel bad for him because he started putting initially his own money into this. And they started asking for more money. But well, in order to be able to unlock the money you've already made, you have to put in more money. And then
I think this is where people can get stuck, right? You're like, okay, I have this money. I think I've put a little bit in. It's gotten a return. Why do I have to put money in to get the money out? And like, I don't think they quite understand sort of the snowball effect and how that perpetuates.
Yeah, and that's what happens is that they come up with these excuses. And again, they're very good. They've been crafting and they're becoming more and more professional at what they're doing and asking for money, right? So their excuses are amazing and incredible. But
like what?
It's you have to pay the tax for this country or you have to get insurance.
The excuses are things that are either unverifiable or to verify them, you would have to do so much research that it's just not worth it. And that's when you convince yourself, and this is the psychology of it, that's when you convince yourself, like, I'm being crazy. I'm thinking too much about this. Like, if it's that elaborate for me to figure it out, it's not real.
So that is the other part that's so interesting is that sometimes they actually send you something. They'll send you money.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
If you're a few $1,000s out and you're starting to have suspicions, wait, is this real? They think there's a much bigger bank of money that I can get. So I'm going to send the victim $1,000 now. They're going to believe us. Once that trust is established, then it's...
And that often happens that the first time they ask for money and you give it, they pay you right back. And like, oh, and that's all part of the scam.
Just like they send the romance victims flowers. They start sending you gifts. They send jewelry sometimes to the romance scammers, victims.
So this banker ended up, it was like I forget how much. It was like 24 or 48 million.
40 something million dollars that he stole then from the clients, from the customers of the bank, and the bank went down. The bank collapsed.
So it's not only that he starts putting his own money in and then he can't get his own money out, but he's like, I'm going to double down and I'm just going to start taking money, embezzling money from the bank in order to unlock. Like,
because you're in so deep at this point that admitting that you were a victim of a scam means your life is over.
but can you imagine for a moment, you've put in maybe 20 times of insurance and fees, and I just have to unlock, like, the mental gymnastics to be like, oh yeah, this one's gonna work is unbelievable.
I spoke to a woman recently who for over a year thought she was in a relationship with John Bon Jovi. She spent so much money sending money to his manager
Oh my God.
because she thought she was going to have a face-to-face with John Bon Jovi. And John Bon Jovi, by the way, sent her, not the real John Bon Jovi, but she would get videos that look exactly, because that's the problem with AI now, which is going to play the role that it is starting to play already in scams. She would get, messages from what looked like John Bon Jovi saying, "Good morning, love my lovely da-da-da." And she started giving money. And at one point she realized this is all fake. This is all a scam. But she thought, what's my life now? I don't have that anymore. Now I go back to just being my lonely self without any prospect of happiness in this world. So I prefer to just believe that this is real. And this speaks to the loneliness epidemic. But I think that that's what happens a lot, even in these crypto scams, where admitting that you've been scammed and you've lost all this money is so incredibly depressing that I just want to keep feeding into this and believing for one more day that maybe this is true and maybe it's real.
This speaks to like how the love scammers can be on the phone with you, can send you pictures, can even video chat with you. Can you describe some of the complication in the technology that is helping people be pulled through these scams?
Yeah, with a lack of complication, the advancement in these technologies that it is helping, right? So with these crypto scams, pig butchering, a really sad fact is that most people don't know. A lot of the people doing the scams in these Southeast Asian compounds, we're talking about factories full with tens of thousands of scammers, people living there day and night. And in many cases, it's forced labor. The majority of people that are stuck there are promised these jobs in the tech and finance industry, and they are lured from all over the world to come to Southeast Asia, to places like Myanmar and Cambodia. And once they get there, the bosses, the criminal bosses of these operations, they take away their passports and they're forced to scam Americans all day long, which is crazy. And as part of this, we did a story about it. Really, they beat them, they torture them. It's horrific. But as part of this whole operation, what we found is that they were using these female models, because again, a lot of the victims in this case were men in the pig butchering scams. They were using these female models to have these conversations using, they would sit in front of a camera, and the camera, the victim thought he was talking to Diana from Arkansas, whatever. This 25-year-old from Arkansas that was living this luxurious life traveling around the world. But in fact, he was talking to, a 25-year-old from India, a man who was being tortured to do this. But then there was a moment where they want to see you face to face, right? So they had these female models that would get in front of a screen, and the screen would make you look the Diana that he's been talking to, and not like the female model, But she was telling me that the technology was still not advanced enough, which is why she had to be a woman. She had to gesticulate and act like a woman does. But if she moved her head too much, it would glitch, and they could see that it's not Diana that they're talking to, but is with this woman. So she had to be very straight and careful with her movements. But now we're not at that stage anymore. Now we're at a stage where, and it doesn't matter if there's even a person in there at all. They can just put something into their computer and tell them what to do, give them the orders, and it will create a fictitious person that sounds and looks exactly like the person you believe you've been talking to.
I think the other thing that some people listening may poke out or pick up on is like, well, You're never in the US? You live this lavish lifestyle. We can never meet in person. We're just going to constantly kick the can on that?
No, I mean, there are cases where for years, women, I mean, the stories that I know, women have been strung along and he'll say that he landed, but there was a change in the flight. And you can't imagine buying it, but there's so many other touch points and the flowers come and all this thing. But yes, this can go on for years.
This person is now, it's not a stranger, right?
It's your boyfriend.
People didn't understand, why would I ever send money to a stranger? This was not a stranger. In many ways, I thought I knew this person better than anyone else in my life. Many of the women that I've spoken to, the actual real victims of these romance scams, yeah, they've spent sometimes years speaking to these guys. Years. And yeah, like they said, people think I'm ridiculous because I sent money to a stranger. He wasn't a stranger. In many ways, I knew this person better than I almost knew myself.
Well, and we all want to think that if we were in that position, we would
never
get to
do this. Yeah, but everybody is scammable.
Can you explain a little bit what is happening with the billions of dollars that circulate related to human bodies?
Yeah, there's basically two different areas. There's the organ trafficking, right, which is different from body parts. These were two different episodes we did for Trafficked, my Nat Geo show. So organ trafficking is unfortunately a booming industry because I think it's something like 17 Americans die every day. I believe I might have gotten that wrong, but it was a really high number of Americans die because they are on a wait list for organs and those organs never show up and they die on that wait list. And because of that, there's people who resort to the black market who go to other countries. And in our story, it was actually in Mexico and Colombia. We traveled to Mexico and Colombia. And yeah, there was a black market for organs. So Americans could travel to these countries and procure an organ, liver, a kidney, whatever organ you needed, cornea, eye corneas, organs that you needed to be able to live. A lot of times from poor people. A lot of reports that were done 20 years ago, I think it's gotten much better, but in India, where there were black market operators that would go out to the poorest of the poorest neighborhoods and towns and procure people and say, if you give me a kidney, I will pay you $10,000. And in many cases, these are people who need that money to survive, and they're willing to give that kidney. In our story, what we found, although we could never fully corroborate that this was happening, we interviewed a guy called El Deshuesador, the deboner, who apparently works for the Cartel del Golfo in Mexico. And he said, and again, we could never corroborate his story, and we made this very transparent in our reporting, where he said they would snatch immigrants who were making their journey through the Darien Gap all the way to the United States. And because if something happens to them, nobody will know, because they're oftentimes with no communication, making this very dangerous journey all the way to the U.S. And many people, as we know, disappear while making these journeys, and how they would snatch migrants and basically kill them and take their organs first and then kill them. It was incredibly horrific and really tragic. So that's the organ trade. It is not, it turns out, a Hollywood fabrication. This actually exists. Even I was shocked to the extent to which this exists. But then there's the body parts industry, which is bananas, which I had no idea it existed, hadn't even seen in Hollywood either once we started reporting on it. There's a burgeoning market called the oddities market, where you can go on places like Facebook or other marketplaces and buy a skull or buy a piece of bone or buy or some of the popular ones, a piece of skin. Inked skin to make wallets. There's people making wallets with human skin. Sometimes if the skin has tattoos, it will go for more money. I interviewed a funeral director who showed me a pen where inside the pen, it had like this see-through area, and inside was a piece of human brain that he had procured online, that he had bought online. So there is, again, a very thriving black market for these body parts everywhere. And then there's also the medical establishment.